Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Fula Kamara. Today I'm going to show you how to use XLookup, which is an Excel function to look up. Say you have a list, for example, this is your list. Maybe you have more than 200 rows of data. Then you have like 5 items, maybe your selections that you wanted to check in this list to see if those items are included in this list. So normally we use XLookup, some use VLOOKUP, some use index match. But for me, I prefer, this is a new function. It's not too old, but VLOOKUP was the oldest one, and then you have like the index match. But the XLookup is very efficient because it has both the benefit of using VLOOKUP and index match. So index match is a combination of index function and match function, whereas the XLookup has both the capabilities to look both vertical, make a vertical lookup, and also horizontal. So by VLOOKUP mean vertical. So as an auditor, this is one of, or accountant, this is one of the tools that you might need in your daily life. You should be able to look up something from a database and then come up with the result, other than having to go through each of the line items and then to identify, or rather than using the filter to identify one item at a time. But with the XLookup, you will be able to look up item very efficiently. In this case, let me just change this. So normally what I use, if I have a list, I'm trying to identify unique items, I will use like the conditional formatting. So under conditional formatting, I can go to highlight rules and then select duplicate values. So I can assign the color. So now it will turn red. So you see, so now I can see we have duplicate invoices here. You see, so which makes it very difficult to use the XLookup if I'm to use the invoices as my unique identifier. The numbers also, if I say, okay, the numbers could be my unique identifiers, then if I go to the numbers, you can see we also have duplicates here. So you see, that's the challenge of using XLookup without doing any formatting. So in this case, so now let's just remove the rules. Let's just clear the rules. So now if we are going to look up something, because normally in audit, let me just look out for unique items here. So let's say we have our selections. So let's say this was our selection. For example, we have this as our selection, and we also have another item. Let's say this is also another selection, and then we have this also as our selection, right? So these are our selections. So now we wanted to check in this list. Let's say this was a large database, right? Wherein for this small list, it's easy for us to know exactly how this is. We can easily look, for example, if we want to see the bookkeeping, the dates. Let me just copy this. If we want to look for the bookkeeping, we can see the dates. For example, we have the 3000. We know the date was November 23rd, so we can find this very easy. But what about where we have like also multiple date, okay, where we also have like November 23rd of this same amount, like a lot of those? It's very difficult for us. So what I normally do in audit, first, I will create a unique identifier on both my list. So these are my selections. Then we have, these are my database. So let's say this was the account. We have the AR agent list. Then we also have the selections. These are our selections. So we've selected 3 items that we want to test. So one of our procedures, we want to make sure this cash receipt, we have received this cash, okay, from the cash receipt. This was it. Let's assume this was a list that we got from the cash receipt, that this was the amount paid in the subsequent period, okay? But these are the invoices that were paid in, let's say in January, for example. We have 3,000, 50,000, and 200,000. So we can use this same XLookup in our SOL testing, that is searching when we are searching for unrecorded liabilities. But now we just wanted to see how we can use this lookup to search this list. So let's assume this is January list of cash receipt, subsequent cash receipt. So we normally perform like subsequent cash receipt procedures on account receivable. That is wherein we do not receive confirmations that we sent out. In that case, we can perform alternative procedures to see, even though testing the subsequent cash receipt sometimes is not sufficient, but it's also a procedure that we could perform when we are dealing with AR in the event we don't receive any confirmation. Because the primary procedure for account receivable is to send confirmations. Then sometimes also we also evaluate or perform analysis on the allowance for doubtful account. So in order for us to know if the allowance is reasonable, we have to perform the aging. That is, if they say, let's say 200 is in the current bucket, we can recalculate the age receivable using Excel. So we can do that as well. But in this case, we just wanted to check our subsequent cash receipt if these actually relate to an account receivable. That is, if this was actually included in our year-end AR detail, that is the account receivable detail. So we can also do the same procedure in our SOL testing. That is when we are searching for unrecorded liabilities. We can obtain the check register and then make our selection from the subsequent disbursement. So from this subsequent disbursement, let's say we select, normally when we are doing the subsequent disbursement, we can use like layers, right? Maybe we can say in the first month, that is January, maybe we can use the T, we can say we are going to test a lower threshold. Maybe we can say 25% of the TE will be our threshold, okay, for selection. Any item that is greater than 25% or maybe 15% of TE, that is the tolerable error, then those are the items that we select for January. Then for February, we can say any amount, let's say 50% of the tolerable error, that is the TE, will be selected for testing. That is from our check register. So in that case, if we select items, let's say we have 10 items that meet our threshold, so we're going to search those items in our AP listing or accruals to see if those items were actually recorded as of 12/31. This is not a search for unrecorded liability or a search for subsequent cash receipt. This is not the procedure that I'm doing. I just wanted to give you a background of where we use XLookup. In the event where we have this duplicate, so that's the reason why you have to make sure you check the list. How I check? By using the conditional formatting to highlight all duplicates. So if there are duplicates, what I will do, I will create unique identifiers. So for example, I will add a column here. So let me just say unique. So this is our unique ID that we're going to use to do the XLookup. We can use concatenate, or we can just say dates and the invoice. So the date and the invoice, just combine the two. So now we have a unique identifier. Okay, so we can just copy this, and we can copy Control or Command C and then use the paste special. So we can just paste as value. So now we've removed the formula, right? So you see, so now if I go back to conditional formatting and let's say highlight duplicate, you can see that there are no duplicates because these are unique numbers. So if I go back here, I also need a unique identifier because we don't have this unique ID column here. So we're going to add it. So let's just hold Command Shift and then press the plus or equal to. Then you will be able to add a column. So now let's just copy this unique identifier and now also use the same formula. Let's say equal to this and this. So now we've also got the unique identifier in this case. So now if I drag this, we've got a unique identifier. So if I use conditional formatting and select duplicate values, you see there are no duplicate values. You can also use this. Let's say, for example, if we want to copy the conditional format into here, we can use the format painter, right? We can just highlight the formatting and then select painter. And then if we click on that, you see, now we've replicated the conditional formatting. So if you have like a process that you do frequently, you can just use this format painter because it saved me a lot of time to copy the formatting. So now we've got the conditional formatting. So you can see here, there are no duplicates. So now, since we have got unique identifier, so now we will be able to bring accurate results. So now if we bring any numbers here, we know these are accurate numbers because they are referencing the correct columns. So you can just double click and drag it over here. So this also should come over here. So you see, so now we've just copied the formulas. In this case, there was one thing that we didn't do. So let me redo the formula so that you see, you can remember exactly what I do. So for XLookup, you can use it to look up unique identifiers to bring you something. So if you say, let me just delete this. If you say you wanted to look up this amount, you wanted to check the 3,000, this invoice, to see if it is in this database or in this listing. So you can just say XLookup. So you tab. So once you press tab, you will select the function. So now the first, you can see the lookup value, right? What are we trying to find in the database? So we want to find the unique identifier. We want to use the unique identifier. And then what is the array? That is, where can we find the unique identifier in our database? So it is on column D. So we can just select the range of cells that has the unique identifier. We are going to exclude the header. Okay, we are only going to select the range for the numbers or the invoices or the unique identifier that we are interested in. So once we've selected that, we can press F4. Okay, so if your function key does not work, to make this cell reference absolute, you can just hold the FN, that is the function, on your keyboard. Just look for the key that has the FN. If your F4 is not active, to activate the function key, just hold the FN and then press the F4. Now we say comma because we're going to also do the array. So now the return array. Return array means, what are you trying to return? What are you interested in? So you want to look in this database. You want to return something, right? Whether be it the description, you want to return the date, anything that you are interested in bringing, you can bring it. Just like you telling your son or your daughter, say, hey, if you go to the park, if you see the teacher, call me. Okay, if you see the teacher, tell him to call me. So you have two options: whether you tell the person, if they see the teacher, to call you, or if they see the teacher, to tell the teacher to call you. So think about that. So now that's a similar analogy here. So we are saying, if you look in this database of unique identifier, if you see the unique identifier, which is the 45253 INV 2023, bring me either the description or bring me the amount, whatever you are interested in. So in this case, let's just say, bring us the description. Okay, bring us the description, then hold FN and press F4. So now we've locked it, and then just close the bracket, press enter. So now you see it has brought us the description. So the reason why I lock the cells, I mean the range here, the reason why I lock this area, remember the L5, I did not lock it because I want to be able to drag the formula, okay, for the unique identifier. Whereas for D5 to D14, which is this column, I want to be able to lock it so that if I drag the formula, it will be able to bring me the correct numbers. So the formula did not change. You see? So now when I drag it, you see, we have the CAS, which is for the 200,000. You see? So now when I double click, you see how this function, the area for the L column, you see how it's changed, right? Whereas for the D5 to D14 and E5 to E14 do not change. The highlights are the same. They highlight the entire range. They do not change because I lock those ranges by using the Fn and press F4. That is making the cells absolute. You see, those are absolute cell references. So even if I drag this formula to the bottom of this spreadsheet, this range will never change. It will still remain highlighted as D5 to D14 and E5 to E14 because I lock it. Whereas if I continue to drag the L column, the column which is the L will change. I mean, the L will remain the same, but the numbers, the row number will change. Okay, remember right now I'm on L7, but if I go to the first column here, if I double click, you can see L5. You see, because I drag it. So that's how to use it to bring a description. So now let's say we want to bring in the amount. We can use the same thing. We can just copy the formula to this, but right now you see it say NA because this is not locked, because we don't lock this one. So if I double click, you can see this is locked, but because this column L is not locked, so we have to bring it here. Okay, we're going to bring it there. So now you see it's bringing the bookkeeping. But if I say, when you go, bring us, what do I want to bring? The amount. I can just select this and bring it to the amount instead of the description. So now if I click enter, you see the amount comes in. So even if I drag, it will still bring the amount, the correct amount. So now this is how you know this amount can be found here. Okay. So let's say also you want to add a tick mark here. Let's say you want to indicate in this database that these are your selections. We already know that these are our selections, but maybe we have two different work papers. We have a testing work paper that has our selections, but here we don't have the tick mark to indicate that these were the items that were selected. Maybe if we have a reviewer who is trying to review our work paper to know exactly the items that were selected, so we can add a column and say selection. So these were our selections, right? So if we add this column, so now let's just delete this and just add here again, say tick mark. Okay, so this is our tick mark. This tick mark, let's just say A. This represents our random selections. Let's say this was a key items. So those are not included in our random sampling. So we can test those 100%. So mind you, key items are not part of the selections. Those are key items because we select them based on our understanding of the client and also our threshold. Okay, we say, okay, these are threshold. Maybe some people have like different way of saying these are thresholds. Some people might tell you, okay, our TE is our threshold, that is a tolerable error. But sometimes you might say, okay, let's don't just use the tolerable error as our threshold. We can say 75% of TE will be our threshold for key items. So it all depends on the client risk. If we have an area, a client that is a new client that we didn't audit in the prior year, or maybe a client that we've audited in the prior year, but we have a lot of adjusting entries. We have a lot of proposed journal entries. So in that case, we can say maybe 50% of our TE, that is our tolerable error, will be the key item in that case. So if we say 50% of TE gives us like 180,000, so meaning that 50% of the TE is our key item. So since it's the 180 is our key item, and now we have 200, meaning the 200 amount is a key item. So we can just say this is B. Or we can just change the random sampling to represent B, tick mark B, and then the key item represents A. Okay, so you can add like a legend where you say TMA. So you can say tick mark legend where you explain this. In audit, you have to document this, what these tick marks mean. Okay, so you don't mislead someone. So you have to explain, say, tick mark A, like for here, you have the tick mark legend, say, TMA is key items equals to key items, and then TMB, you say randomly selected. So as long as you use random sample, so now we have added the tick mark. So now to indicate here really quick, let's say we have a long list of items that we want to add here. We say, okay, now we want to indicate which of these items were the selections. So that when the reviewer goes to the file, they know the item that we selected for testing. Okay. So we, even though we say selections, we can also reference the work paper where these items are tested. We can add those work paper here. Let's say we have the work paper reference as A.19. Maybe where we did the testing was actually tab 2, so we can say 2. So now we've indicated that this item was actually tested at work paper A.14 tab 2. So maybe the work paper has like multiple tabs, meaning you are telling the reviewer that let them look at work paper A14, which is the work paper reference, tab 2. That's where we did the testing. So if they go to this work paper, they should be able to find the selection, the items that we tested. Then if we also go to the testing work paper, we also have to cross-reference to this. So now let's just add the selection. So let's use the XLookup again. So in this case, we're going to also use the range. This is our lookup value, the unique identifier. So now what are we interested? Where is the array? So the array is here, because this is where we're going to look. So previously when we need the result on this area, on this cell, we use this area instead of here. So now because we want the XLookup to bring us the result to this column, that's the reason why we're using this range. The database is our lookup value. That is the lookup value. We select the item in our database. So now we say comma, and now the lookup array we have also selected, which is, okay, I forgot to lock this formula. So press Fn and press F4 so that you can lock the formula, the $sign, to make it absolute cell reference. So now what I want them to return, I want them to return this column, the tick marks, that is TM. So I will also select this range. So now I'm also going to hold Fn and press F4 so that I can lock that range, and use the close bracket and press enter. So now it has showed me B. So it says, okay, so I would drag it. So you see where you have the NAs, meaning these were not part of our selections. Whereas the tick mark B, these are our selections. So if you go back to here, you can see 50,000. And then here, you can also see the reference, the unique identifier 4525 INV 2024. You can see that it's the same reference number. So meaning we are accurate in this case. So you can also see the invoice, the 200,000, which is the client advisory, was dated December 1st. So if we go back here, we can see the date December 1st, meaning this is the correct one. So you see it has highlighted. So all we need to do is to copy, Command C, and then, or we select paste special and then paste the value. Okay, if we are on Windows, you can just hold the Alt Control V so that you can paste value. But because I'm on a Mac, that's why I'm using the paste special, because I feel like it's shorter for me. I know the hotkey, but I prefer to use the paste special because this is easier for me to just select. But on Windows, you can just hold Control Alt V so you can get the paste special. So whereas for Mac, you can use, for me, I use the paste special here, the down arrow, and then select the paste value. So now we have indicated here, we have got this tick mark, but this is not decent. Okay, we want to like add some filters, right? So we want to do some filter here. We can just insert some filtering. So now we know NAs mean they were not found. So they were not part of our selection. So for us to make this cleaner, we can delete the NAs. So we can just select the NAs only, right? If we remove auto filter, we can just click apply. So now we've got the NAs. So if we are just deleting this, we can just say delete. So now we can go back and select, we exclude the blanks and highlight. So now we can see we have all our selections here. So if we just change this to the red highlight, so now we've made it cleaner, right? So now if we also select to include blanks, so now you see these are our selections. So now if a reviewer comes to this wallpaper, they will be able to see this. Remember, this is not a wallpaper. This is, I just design it or try to make it look cleaner, but it's not a wallpaper because there is no procedure box here or documentation of the tick mark legend, all that kind of thing. So this is just to show you how I use XLookup in auditing. Thank you for watching. If you have any question, you can leave your questions in the comment. Please don't forget to subscribe, like if you like the video, and comment. See you in the next video. Thank you.